Well, greetings, brothers and sisters. Just a quick word of encouragement for you today, this time from the 2 Corinthians letter, Paul's second letter to the Corinthians, in chapter 8 is where I want to focus on. Now, I'm not going to read a long section, but I would encourage you to go read either before or after you listen to this. Go read 2 Corinthians chapter 8, at least the first 15 verses, but maybe even all of chapter 8 and all of chapter 9. They all revolve around the same subject matter, which is this idea of giving, of being generous. And I can tell you, friends, we are in times that have restricted, have tightened up. Some people are without money, without an income or as much income. Some people are doing without it, what they're usually used to doing with. Some people were already stressed and living in tight situations, and this is only making it worse. And I don't know, I don't want to be a doomsday person, but I also suspect things are going to get a little worse before they get better in terms of just how things are going to be affected around us, economically speaking. And so I want to just share these verses real quick with you. They're an encouragement from Paul to be generous, to be willing to share out of anything, whatever you have. In fact, you don't have to have a lot to be considered generous and to fit the bill of what he's talking about. He opens the chapter up by referring to the Macedonians, this group of people, and he says, and I'm going to read this verse to you. In verse 2, he says, in a severe test of affliction, their abundance of joy and their extreme poverty have overflowed in a wealth of generosity, for they gave according to their means. Friends, this is not about whether you have a lot or whether you have nothing. It's not about that at all. It's about whether you are willing to generously share out of what you do have. Of course, you remember the story Jesus told when he looked at those coming into the temple and placing their money into the thing, and he looked at the ones that placed a lot in, and he looked at the little widow who placed one little mite in, and he said she gave more than anybody else because she gave from all that she had. She gave a significant portion, and maybe all of that she had that she was able to give. But all of this is asking us to assess, let's be willing to share. Are we willing to take what we have? We may not think it's abundance, but to many people, it is abundance. Are we willing to share what we have? Are we willing to be generous with it? Are we willing to say, if I have more than enough, you can have some? In fact, he closes out in verse 15, he closes out by reaching back to an Old Testament verse, a quotation from when the children of Israel were wandering in the desert and they were collecting manna. And it said that whoever gathered a lot had nothing left over, and whoever only gathered a little had enough. In other words, everyone was taken care of. And if you tried to get more for yourself, it just wasted away. Friends, this is a principle Paul uses to talk to us about wealth and abundance and having things today in our time frame. He says you can gather as much as you want. In the end, you're going to have nothing left. Or if you want to trust the Lord and you're not able and you're gathering a little, you still are not going to lack. Are we willing to receive this? But what I want to get to is all of that. You go read the verses. All of that is based on one central, and it comes right in the middle of the text, one central verse that puts it all in context for us. That's verse 9. For you know the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, that though he was rich, yet for your sake he became poor, so that you by his poverty might become rich. Friends, we can talk about material things and what to do with those, but even that is based on a far deeper, far more important spiritual principle. Jesus Christ, who in the very nature being God, did not consider that equality with God something to be grasped, but he humbled himself, he emptied himself, he came in the form of man, and even further humbled himself to be obedient to death, to the point of death, even death on the cross, as Paul wrote to the Philippians. But in this verse he says that though Jesus was rich for your sake, for my sake, for your sake, he became poor, so that through his poverty, you might become rich. Can we not only take this spiritual principle and receive it, but can we say this must then apply to everything I have in my life? All of my physical, material possessions, all of my gifts, my talents, my time. Jesus willingly, voluntarily humbled himself, emptied himself, made himself poor for other people's sake so that they might become rich through his poverty. Take heart. What Jesus has shown us is also what he wants from us, and he is the one, by his grace, he is the one who will lead us in doing so. Be blessed, friends.